This is other state champ Alex Thompson. This is Josh Elwer from the University of Northern Iowa, and you're listening to Potentially Dangerous on IA Wrestle.
Hey, is this heaven?
No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Wrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Wrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show.
When the whistle go.
Welcome back to Potentially Dangerous. I'm your host, Tony Hager, joined by, always, Ross Bartachek here on IEWrestle.com. Got lots of stuff to get to here. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about that transfer backlash that we had. Talked about last week, just a little bit about our thoughts. I think Ross maybe going to dive into a little bit of that too as well. And then, obviously, Thomas Gilman. Wow, what a run. You know, we thought that maybe if he got on a good side of the bracket, a good position, you know, we thought that he could have a shot at medaling, but he wrestled lights out. I thought he did a really good job, so we'll get into that. Alli Ragan, who's not signed to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, but likely coming. Anthony Sherry going to Iowa State. And then we'll dive into this maybe. If we got a little time, we'll talk about David Taylor tweet to J'den Cox and then Cox's reaction and all that good stuff. So good week in wrestling for the United States, Ross. You know, how was your weekend? Did you get to watch? You know, you just got back from Paris yourself, so your sleeping schedule's all messed up. I mean, did you get did you wake up early to watch some of these matches, or did you wait till the next day?
I was a bum. I missed the first two matches. Which I don't know. I don't even know who was covering it for us. Obviously, somebody was working the Twitter game. Was that you?
That was me and I believe Lars and Critter. Just kind of not really sure. I know it was one of the three of us at some point in time. My kids were like clockwork every morning, like 3 a.m. It was weird. Like 3 a.m, my little girl would wake up. So I always got to watch for like an hour, then I'd try to go back to sleep. I ended up just watching in my bed. So, but I had on my phone. So I think Lars handled a heavy load, and then I think Kirk got in there too. So
yeah, I watched. So it would have been quarterfinals and on for Gilman, and then I watched all the. That been Saturday action. I watched that after the fact, just later that day rather than that morning. So obviously some big matches went down on Saturday too, but really strong performance by the men's. Loved it. Thomas Gilman continues to blow us away, but I don't know. Do you want to? Where do you want to start with though? Do you want to start with the Senior Worlds, or do you kind of want to start where we were last week, where we talk about that transfer, the backlash, I guess, we got from our last podcast.
Let's start with the transfer stuff. Let's start with the transfer stuff because we could go a million places with the World Championship. So let's start with the transfer stuff. So Ross and I, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, there's been a few transfers this weekend, this past summer. Obviously, big names coming to Southeast Polk, but there's transfers all over the state, and we got some feedback from a few people in and around the metro, and some of them were from other schools, some of them were from Southeast Polk, and it was interesting, I guess. You know, listening back, and you know, I'm a big believer in this podcast isn't like a news source. We're not like Sports Center reading off, you know, results. Sometimes we kind of get into that. We need to have more of our opinion. This how everyone has their stinking opinion on Twitter and Facebook. It's crazy. That's what this is about, right? We're trying to give our opinion of how we look at it. Maybe it's not politically correct. Just like when you send messages to us or send emails, that's your opinion. So just because you don't agree with me or Ross and I don't agree with you doesn't mean that none of us are right. You know, there's not a right answer, I think, in this whole transfer situation. But Ross, listening back to it, seeing the feedback, I mean, is there anything that you want to kind of clear the air on? Anything that you might have said, or I guess where maybe you thought maybe my words got a little deconstructed a little?
I'm kind of surprised we did get backlash. I thought we were a little PG. I thought we were pretty tame. It's kind of what we said. I didn't think we were really, breaking. Like you said, we're not breaking the news. We're telling, this was. We talked about that this had happened. And I think if you're transferring from high schools, you kind of know what goes with the territory. So I was a little surprised to hear that we got some feedback, to see some of the feedback about people, thinking we're not really thinking through the situation. And I thought we did a really good job. The main thing I wanted to reiterate is that, we kind of said that transfers are a case-by-case basis. That's kind of why we said we don't think the Iowa High School Athletic Association should have the power to try and institute a rule, because there's just too many individual cases that there's one reason or another you're moving to a different school. So I thought we, from my perspective, I thought we did a pretty good job. And any of the negative backlash is just kind of what you would have expected. People are going to say what they're going to say. But if you truly feel like you're putting your kid, your family in a better situation, moving to a different school district, you got to know that comes with the territory, and just know what you're doing is for the best. Is kind of what, just my general thoughts. I know you kind of said some things that maybe got a little misconstrued.
Well, here's the deal. Like, if you go into that podcast, if someone says, like, let's just say I'm from an alumni from Iowa City West, and in Iowa City West, we were just talking about people transferring to Iowa City West. Dugan's coming in. I mean, that's a completely different situation than Southeast Polk. But, I mean, let's just say that I'm a Southeast or Iowa City West alum, and I text the parent of that person that is transferring in, hey, you should listen to this podcast. You're not going to be happy. Well, if you listen to the podcast with that already in your mind that I shouldn't be happy about this conversation, you're not going to be happy, right? I mean, that's just the way, like, someone says, holy cow, you should listen to what Trump said. I can't believe he'd said that. If you already have that in your mind that this is, crap, that's what you're going to probably get out of it. We're easily swayed. We've been swayed all our lives from our friends, parents. I mean, that's just the way it is. So what I took away from it, listening back, talking people that it offended, was it's all about how your mind is going into listening to that podcast. You're going to have knee-jerk reactions, maybe kind of like a lot of people did have with David Taylor's tweet about J'den Cox. You see that and you're like, oh my God, come back, sit back, and that's what's great about wrestling podcasts is, we get to debate. It's almost like an online forum, but you know exactly who's saying it and not saying it, right? I mean, who's actually saying it, so it hurts a little bit more when you know who's offending you. So I get where people are upset. If I upset people, that's fine. The reality is you're going to get you're scrutinized throughout your entire life. Anything that you do. That's just the way life works. And I've been scrutinized. I mean, daily, obviously, I got scrutinized for the podcast. But here's where my thought process, again, if you haven't listened to it, was 95 or 90%. It's a bull crap percentage. Is these people are transferring? And when they transfer, they say it's because of job related. Oh, I got a new job, great job, and it just happens to be in one of the best wrestling programs for my best wrestling kid that was on that team. Like, crazy coincidences, right? Not so much. I don't believe it. So some cases, yes. Very, 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 if that's the case, yes, they've got, they're trying to grow their business into other areas, or, they're in sales and that's where their headquarters are. Like you said, Ross, it's case by case scenario. But then another person reached out to me and said, so what? I wanted to go to a different conference because I thought the conference was harder. I thought I could get more exposure at this school. I thought the kids could push me a little bit harder. That's where I wanted my kid to, I thought that was his best opportunity to go to college. perfectly fine. If that's the reason, then that's the reason. So I actually enjoy hearing that. It's fresh hearing someone say that's actually why they transferred. It's not because of some BS line that they got a different job, right? It's 100% about sports. So, I mean, am I making myself clear there, Ross, of why, how two different scenarios are completely different? One saying job and one saying it is because of sports. There really is two different lines of why people do transfer.
I mean, so the main thing is, I guess maybe if I'm listening to this, if I'm a parent that's moving, obviously, like you said, you had somebody reach out to you and said, yeah, we are moving for wrestling reasons. And you enjoy that because it's a fresh, you're telling it to me straight. So when you say, are you saying that it's crap when somebody says they're moving for their job and it's really for wrestling? I mean, I guess
Yes.
that's probably what it's coming down to, is the people that are offended are the ones that are saying it's for their job. Maybe in the back of the mind, they know it's for wrestling, but that's kind of the party line they've already trotted out and they got to stick to it. So I think probably that's where it's coming from. So yeah, I mean, if you're taking that hard line stance that if you're just trying to sell us some bad goods just to say like, no, it's not for wrestling, it's for, this, that, and the other reason, and you're bold-faced lying to us, yeah. If you're saying you don't like it, then somebody's going to be offended, and that's just how it's going to be.
At the end of the day, I could care less. I'm not affected by it at all. I mean, I'm not the ones that are in these communities. I mean, I heard, and this ended up being a rumor. I heard Anthony Sherry from Glenwood was going to transfer to Underwood. That would be a dagger to the Glenwood coaches. I mean, that would suck. How much time have they put in and energy, and they put energy into everybody. And I heard that was a case. Well, you said that the coaches didn't give these kids so much special attention. These coaches should give every single kid the same amount of attention. No one should get special privileges not to come to practice. Doesn't have to do sprints. We see that issue with Pat Downey up in Ames. You give people special circumstances, you're going to get kids that think they're special. And in high school, you just can't give kids special attention during practice. Maybe after practice you can work with them. I mean,
To me, the attention the coaches put in, it doesn't have anything to do with how much they're getting. And like you said, maybe every kid should probably get the same amount of coach exposure, coach work, to get that when So to me, it's not a fact of, they're not doing anything more for my kid than somebody else. When you say the coaches have put in all that time, that does mean something. Whether, those parents that are unhappy with the situation they're leaving, they should still recognize that, they still put a lot of time in. There could have been a time when a kid was, 5 pounds overweight or 5 pounds over what he's supposed to be at, the night before, and he calls his coach up and says, hey, I really need to get in a workout, or just anything, hey, I can't be there late after practice, but I can come in at 5 a.m. Would you mind coming in and drill technique? I mean, it's little things, and it's just those little instances that the coaches make time for these kids, and it's just a lot of energy. You invest emotionally in these kids you're coaching. So, I don't really buy into they're not doing more for my kid than any other kid on the team. They're supposed to be there for the whole team. It's just the fact that they still put a lot of their passion into that. They're there 100% supporting that kid. So when they leave, it does hurt. And that should kind of be recognized and not just kind of thrown on the floor and say, well, they don't really do anything special, so what's it to us? Yeah,
I mean, it's an emotional, you're basically going through a divorce with somebody that you've grown to love, and that's what wrestlers love each other, and you lose somebody, it's close to you, it hurts, so people are emotional. I mean, anybody in the state right now, if they lost somebody that placed at the state tournament, and they were really a star, that would suck. That would make people do things that they normally don't do. And I don't think anybody should be like, this is, saying that people are overreacting. You don't have a heart, or you don't care about the kids that you originally coached if you don't get upset about it. So, the whole transfer thing, I think it's just the people that lose somebody are going to be upset, and the people that get people are going to be happy. That's just that's the way it is. The only people that could be upset are maybe the people that are on the team that they thought they were going to have a spot. Oops, you're gone now. So,
yeah, exactly. So I think we're pretty clear on what our thoughts are. And if you don't like them, it's not like we're fighting against these kids. It's not like they're going to be 3 spots lower in the rankings. We go by, facts. We follow the stories that are stories. So at the end of the day, it doesn't affect anything from our angle, our side of what we do. We're here to promote, but that's just kind of our 2 cents, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. I could probably talk another 20 minutes about it.
Exactly. I don't know if anybody wants to listen to a half hour of transfer talk.
I would say we're still beating the horse down on this whole situation, but if we don't talk about the topics in Iowa, we had a whole podcast about the streaming of the state wrestling tournament,
right?
Media with Jason Bryan. Those are the type of topics we need to talk about. So let's move on. From the transfer talk, if you feel the need to direct message me, perfectly happy answering them and talking to you, talking through it. Maybe you can give me a different perspective on it. And again, it is case-by-case basis when it comes down to it. And I respect that. Let's get to Thomas Gilman. All right? Positive news. Positive. Bringing a world medal back to Iowa City. I have talked to a lot of people about leading up to this. We watched it with a bunch of Iowa Hawkeye fans at a watch party here in Des Moines. Ended up kind of being a bummer because we couldn't get the Olympic channel on the TV. So definitely need to check on that next time. But anyways, his run, you didn't get to watch the first couple matches, but Thomas Gilman he always had his chip on his shoulder, but man, he has got just a nasty head. His heavy hands on his right side. That thing is what sets up all the stuff. He comes heavy right, and then he goes out to that sweep single, and I felt like he still had that from college, but I felt like he was a little more prepared for his athletes. Like maybe I'm just chalking it up to what I think maybe Mark Perry did with him in his corner as far as getting ready for these opponents, but I feel like he was more methodical in some of his matches. And kind of as it went on too a little bit. He wrestled a little bit differently, and he didn't pull a trigger on some things. So maybe like he was getting coached to do one thing, and it wasn't what he's used to doing. So sometimes it felt like he was kind of just off his game a little bit, what he's not used to. So there's kind of a catch-22 there when you're trying to get somebody to switch things up for their opponent, what they're not used to. I don't want to say that's what happened, but Gilman definitely looked different in his finals and quarterfinal match than he did in some of the other matches. But going back, Ross, looking back at those on the archives, how do you feel like Thomas Gilman performed?
I think, just to take it back even a step further, to think like all the way back to the World Team Trials, you mentioned it, his low single, he's just so smooth with that. And the crazy thing is he transitioned it from college into that senior level wrestling. And, you talk about what Mark Perry can do from maybe a strategy, a game film standpoint, which we've all heard a lot Mark's able to do. But I kind of wonder, Perry has never lacked any confidence, and I don't think Gilman's really lacked it either. So I think having them together is just kind of a really good pairing. And I'm wondering if that's kind of what has helped Gilman just go into the senior level and just keep attacking, doing the same things that made him successful at Iowa. Now he's doing it against the domestic competition and international competition. So, he looked really good at the World Tournament. Obviously, I tweeted that out that he was the best American performance at that weight since Cejudo in 2008. Best performance by a Hawkeye since '06. Both Zadok's medaled. So it obviously is a pretty big tournament for him to come away with that medal. But just the fact that he's able to continue to get to his offense, I thought, is just something that, I mean, you see these guys in college and you're like, man, if he can transition that to the next level, he's going to be so good. And so far, Gilman's done it. Hopefully he doesn't tighten up after losing his first really big match. But I was really impressed. He had gut offense, parterre. So just everything was really clicking for him. He just kind of couldn't finish there in the World Finals.
Yeah, and the guy he was wrestling too, I mean, he's out, experience, better freestyle wrestler, I guess you could say. Gilman just couldn't get through the hands. He did once, he got underneath there, and almost got a 4 there, but just couldn't, almost kind of went for it, I guess you could say, and just didn't have enough control to get the 4 at the end. So he was very close to tying it up. He would have had, I believe he would have had criteria at that point. So he was real close. Just interesting to see. I mean, he's going to be sitting in the finals now, the best of 3 finals. So that's exciting. I would expect him to be at the World Cup in Iowa City. They just announced that. Is it April that's going down?
Yep.
April. Yep. So the World Cup would be pretty sweet for Iowa Hawkeye fans, Iowa fans, United States fans, I think. Got in a little tussle with some guy that was, there's some weird people out there.
And UWW comes out with the new weights, going to 10 weight classes, 57 staying the same. There'll be new weigh-in rules, but I think, Gilman, he's made 125 all through college. He certainly looks bigger. Maybe he looks bigger. I don't know. He just looks bigger than the other 57 kilo guys out there, kind of felt like. So I think he's going to be fine at that weight going forward. I don't think there's any reason for him to move up. So could be some potential battles there with Spencer Lee in the room. What do you think about Gilman and Spencer squaring off?
Yeah, that's going to be the similar situation. Not similar, I guess, but, iron sharpens iron. But, so that will be very interesting to see what kind of happens with those weight classes. I have no idea, if Gilman's cutting a lot of weight or what his plans are for the future. So, it'll be interesting to see what does happen in there. You got Jesse Delgado in there too, so that's a guy that hasn't seen a lot of freestyle action either. So I mean, you can't throw his name out of the hat yet when we just haven't seen him. Hopefully, you get to see him a little more. But yeah, Hawkeye fans have to be pretty pumped about that. The state of Iowa has to be pumped up about that. I mean, it's the first medal that's come back since 2006 to Iowa. Is that right?
Yep.
To the University of Iowa, and see when would have been the last medal. Would have been the last medal to come back to the state of Iowa. World medal.
The last world medal from the Hawkeye,
or just anybody from Iowa.
From Iowa, I'd have to look that one up.
Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm just trying to. We'll have to look that up and get it in the next podcast. I'm just curious, like Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State, Northern Iowa. I mean, who that would be. We'll move on. We'll figure that out.
I was just gonna say. I mean, Varner, I think, is the only Cyclone. Well, Varner and Sanderson, but obviously neither were Iowa natives. And then the last medalist for Iowa going back was Zadok in 06. And then I think Joe Williams from Illinois also medaled a couple times before that, but before him, I don't know. It could be the Brands. That might be too far, but
yeah, I know. Sorry,
I kept going. You wanted to move on. What else you got, Hager?
No, I'm not. We need we need a historian here. I'm absolutely horrible at those things. I mean, you tell me how many Iowa Hawkeye national titles they have, I wouldn't know. I'm just horrible with stats. I just like to watch matches, so and comment on them. So I'm definitely not a history buff when it comes to wrestling. But so Gilman. And also, I figure we should mention Alli Ragan, too. I think if that deal does go through with the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, all signs, she says she's moving to Iowa City, but at the end of the day, she's a world medalist, hasn't signed on the dotted line, and dating Corey Clark, so all you would think that it would happen, but there could be more offers out there now that she's that people know that she's willing to move, willing to switch coaches up. So I think that deal's not 100% done yet, but if it does, that brings a whole new dynamic into the state of Iowa for women's wrestling, something that this state absolutely needs. And I'm hoping that the other universities kind of will get behind it too. Just because this is at the University of Iowa, will Iowa State support it? Will UNI support it? Got it, helping. I'm not sure how much they help, but maybe getting local people, to push, clubs there. I think it's all what we need in the state of Iowa is to have somebody like Alli Ragan being a star, being able to go to these camps around Iowa, going in tournaments, being around high school events. I don't know what her plan is, but I just think it's amazing that the Hawkeye Wrestling Club can sign her and or anybody in Iowa. But I would be shocked if it's not the Hawkeyes or the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. So pretty. She hit some nasty headlocks though. Have you watched any of her matches?
I think I watched the semifinals. I think is what I watched.
She need to open up her offense. She's got great offense, but it seems like in the big matches, sometimes Alli doesn't pull the trigger, and she's actually going to be on Takedown Radio on Saturday. I'm going to ask her a little bit about this. Sometimes she just doesn't pull the trigger. I don't know if she's setting up that headlock because it is pretty nasty. She got a couple of girls in the world at the World Championships, the biggest level you can do it in, right? So maybe she's setting things up for that. But she's got to get to her offense if she's going to want to be, a gold medalist, I think. But
I wasn't sure if maybe, if she might be better off at 58 kilos. I thought that's where she had wrestled in the past. But obviously with Helen Maroulis there, it's kind of a little bit harder to go to that weight when you got somebody, that I don't even know what you want to call Helen, the Jordan Burroughs, of the women's side. Somebody that's just a freak talent. That's just what you do 57-0 for her opponents on the way to her world title. So I don't know if Alli would be better off at 58, but just can't go there based on the team. And to answer your other question, the last medal from the state of Iowa, I think it's Terry Brands back in 2000.
Wow.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, Terry Brands. Maybe not born and raised. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Terry Brands. Wow, crazy. Anyway, so World Championships, it's kind of gone and past. I don't want to beat that. It was only, Saturday, but there's not much else we can really say. He had a hell of a tournament.
Yep.
Obviously,
team title.
Obviously, room to improve. And you did a great article on the Mark Perry effect. And, how much effect has he really had on Thomas Gilman? You don't really know. What's actually happening behind the scenes in the last couple of months, but some positive things have been happening in Iowa City because of him. You can't take away, what he did, at Council Bluffs, going into, over Nebraska, what Tom and Terry and Morningstar and company have done for him. I just think, I think it's really great to have Mark Perry on staff. He just brings a different dynamic and a different attitude towards things. And to have them and the Brands in there, it's a deadly combo. So let's move on. Wasn't a lot of recruiting news the last week or so. Not a whole lot of transfers, but Anthony Sherry, we mentioned him earlier. Anthony Sherry is going to Iowa State. I've heard that he's pretty good buddies with Alex Thompson. I don't know if Nebraska was on him or not, but picking up Sherry, top 10 senior, right? As far as our rankings go in Iowa to pick up for a recruit.
Yeah, he was. I think he's always been in the top 10 available, and he was number 16 overall in the Fab 50. And he did tell us that he picked Iowa State over South Dakota State and Nebraska. Those were the two schools that were really on him. Actually, when I talked to him, it would have been back in July. I was kind of asking him where he was in his process, what he was thinking. And he had 3 schools, he told me, back in July. And then when he commits, he only got 3 schools listed. So obviously, nobody else really got into the mix. Kind of looks like I thought he was going to take some visits, but maybe he just kind of stuck with unofficial visits. Obviously, living in the western part of the state, not too difficult to get to Nebraska, not too difficult to get to Ames for him. So he probably did get some visits in, and he's going to be. It's kind of interesting that he's kind of pretty much the same size as Joel Shapiro, though. Kind of seems like they're doubling up at that weight.
Yeah, I think that they're just trying to, they're putting a lot of stock in the Iowa kids and trying to get that footprint here in Iowa. I think Dresser, I don't know what, if there's scholarship money getting thrown around, but he's recruiting heavy in Iowa. That's clear. Clearly recruiting hard here. So, I'm not sure if, he just, like I said, wants to get that footprint here where people know that Iowa State's willing to sign him if they can make it happen. Or, if they need a spot there, who knows what he came for, right? That's what we never know. But either way, great pickup for Iowa State. Nice little pipeline from out west for them. So, Anthony Sherry. There wasn't really any other recruiting news I could think of, right?
He's the only one that's committed recently. I don't even know with our other top 10, what Teskey, Biscaglia, Bennett, those are 3 of the big names that are still on the board right now that are big names nationally. I don't know when they're looking to commit, but maybe some couple more guys now that the fall is. It's just right around the corner.
Yeah, wrestling's going to be starting here damn soon, so it'll be interesting to see if we get some commitments from them. And I believe September 1st now, coaches can contact some juniors. And you've got a junior list that's coming out here, top 5 uncommitted juniors. Let's roll through these. Number 1, Aiden Reeves. This is a guy that I think, when he came in, Ross, we obviously had him at Night of Conflict, lots of hype his freshman year. I don't know if that got to him or what, but he really kind of showed up this past year, this summer. I feel like he still needs to put on a little bit more weight if he's wanting to get some eyes, from some big Division I schools. I think he needs to put on a little bit more weight, muscle mass, but he's number one guy, uncommitted junior, number 6 in Lars Fab 50 ranking. Who else you got here on your top 5?
Well, these are all based off of Lars's Fab 50, so we'll give him credit. But moving through Eric Fout, if you look at the Fab 50, the top 10, 3 of them were at the same weight there in 2A: Reeves, Fout, and Doolittle. So just kind of thinking intuitively, when you got those 3 guys that have got some national accolades to them, they got some big wins to their name. It's pretty obvious that Aiden deserves to be on top. He had to beat Fout to reach his first state finals, and he had to beat Doolittle to win his first state title. And he's getting 2 pound-for-pound wins there. So Reeves is definitely the top guy. Fout's kind of, he was right there in the cadet finals a year ago. I'm not sure why he wasn't on the freestyle scene. I think you talked to Seabold a little more. And if you don't know why he wasn't wrestling this summer, maybe you should find out.
I will find out. I don't know.
It could have been just dinged up. It could have been a number of things, but
yeah, I'm trying to think the last time I saw him. I believe I saw him at AAU State, just kind of rolling around. Like, he was at the state tournament. I thought he was coaching and stuff, and he didn't look like he was limping or a sling or anything. I'll have to find that out. It's a good little thing to check up on. Then you've got Cade DeVos. He'll be at the Night of Conflict. Really, guys that I think just had a bad freestyle Fargo, right? He ran into Runyon. Those guys wrestle each other a lot. Kind of an emotional match. I feel like if he wins that match, he's going to be in the national rankings. Don't you think?
I mean, Cade's kind of been a guy since middle school that's been a big name. I know Intermat definitely had him in their middle school rankings when he was, still a schoolboy age. So, maybe it's probably a little bit of that. And what was it? He didn't place last year at 120. And I know he was kind of fighting through some injuries there last summer, but it definitely didn't help him. And I think he's really close. I think getting him a match with the number 19 guy, maybe that's not enough to pull him up because it's just a fringe top 20 guy. But if Cade can win this Night of Conflict match, I think he should be ranked. I think he's a guy that deserves to be right there on the fringe.
So Cade DeVos, and then you've got John Henrik from Akron Westfield, and then Julian Broderson, who really has been tested himself this summer. I believe he hadn't wrestled freestyle or Greco. So number 5, Julian Broderson. I haven't heard if he's been getting. I'm assuming Warburg's on him pretty hard, where his brother's at. But that's a guy that has, I think, a huge upside. I think going into his senior year, I think he's going to leapfrog a couple of these guys in this junior class as far as recruiting-wise. I mean, I don't know how Fab 50 rankings work for Lars, but I feel like in recruiting ranking-wise, Julian Broderson really fits that college, just the way he wrestles, the way he looks, just his muscle. I mean, I feel like Julian Broderson could be a good college wrestler.
I mean, his emergence is almost a little bit, I don't know if I really want to make this comparison because it might be unfair to him, but, Joel Shapiro, we always knew he was kind of good, and then bang, he's right there. He's winning a state title. He's going, he's having a really good Disney Duel tournament. Does some things out at Fargo that make you go like, all right, this guy's got some potential, and maybe this year we see Broderson take another step forward. I kind of wonder where his weight's going to end up. He's already wrestling 170 this summer. How big's he going to get? Haven't really looked at 2A rankings. That's not really my 4A there, but Broderson's definitely a guy that's really just, he's exploded over the last 4 months, 6 months, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm excited. You check these out on iwrestle.com, and you've got the senior. You've done the seniors already too. So you top 10 in those.
We're running a top 10 available there for the seniors. So that's kind of a revolving list as a guy commits. We're gonna do a feature on the next guy that moves in to kind of keep getting exposure for these guys to make sure. I don't know if college coaches are checking us out, but if you're trying to figure out, what guy maybe is a little bit under the radar, maybe you want to get a little bit of better feel on a guy. That's just kind of what we're trying to do. And, Matt Robertson from Assumption, I think he's ranked 22. I don't know if he's the 18th best senior, but now he's listed on the top 10 available. So just kind of slowly working their way in.
Some other things, we've announced quite a few of our Night of Conflict matches. I believe we've announced 6 or 7, and this thing is almost set, and it sounds like it's really set after some of the conversations I had tonight about the event and how long we're wanting to keep this thing. We can't have a ton of matches. We've got to get set up for the tournament the next day, so hopefully we'll get the matches that we want in the event. For you guys, and so keep on your your eyes on IA Wrestle. We've been doing these Tuesday, Thursday releases at noon, and they're kind of fun. These kids get a huge stage to step up on, Carver Hawkeye Arena, and we're pumped to bring you the Night of Conflict 3. Tickets should be going on sale here. Hopefully, we'll be hearing what the layout's going to be here soon, so we can start selling those tickets. So we'll let you know as soon as we get that underway. A couple other housekeeping things. I thought it was pretty cool. 2017-18 Iowa Conference wrestling schedule's out. That thing, that conference is always tough. Loras is kind of an emerging Division III school. Central is kind of going in there. Simpson College now has a hired assistant, so that's pretty great news for Division III wrestling. Coe's got brand new facilities. They're really going all in with wrestling again, so that's good to hear about that. One last thing I think we should, let's just end the podcast on this. So I want to get your thoughts before I comment on, so J'den Cox J'den Cox, I guess you could say, wins a controversial match at the World Team Trials. He's hurt. They're saying he's sliding all over the mat. There's different opinions on that match at Lincoln, and he goes out to the World Championships, and David Taylor comes out and says you basically had it on a silver platter, then you blew it, blah blah blah. What are your thoughts on the tweet from David Taylor? Right after J'den Cox, his fellow American, tweets that out. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm not a fan of it. They kind of, especially when you think about how Flo they made a big deal about his reaction at the World Team Trials and Kale's reaction. It kind of painted them, and whether or not they are poor sports, it made them kind of look like, he was upset. He was kicking the cube there in Lincoln, and it just kind of made him look like, a little bit immature there. So then, of course, a couple months later at the World Championships, he sees it's a good opportunity to go ahead and tweet about Cox. So to me, from David Taylor's camp, I guess I don't know what he's going for, but I didn't think it was the best move. I think it's kind of, you had your chance. You had 3 matches to put J'den away, and whether or not you didn't like how the third match ended, maybe you should have done something more in those first 2. So to me, Taylor is a little out of line to criticize a guy that eventually won a world medal.
Yeah. I think during the World Championships might have not been the best time to do that. This is a time where you are trying to, guys go to the, talk to Nick Heflin, who went to camp to try to make J'den Cox the best J'den Cox possibly, and that's his competitor. Nick Heflin wants to be at the World Championships too, but he went out there and possibly injured himself trying to get J'den Cox better. At that point in the World Championships, up until the end of the World Championships, I feel like you need to be cheering on your teammates. We saw, Tony Ramos cheered on, Thomas Gilman. I'm sure that wasn't like I'm sure that it didn't excite him to tweet that, but I think deep down he knew that was the right thing to do. There's things that you do because you don't want to do them, and I think. Sometimes we say things that we don't really mean. I'm not saying that Tony didn't mean it, but I guess wait until after the World Championships where you can maybe have a platform to say, I think J'den Cox, blew it, or you can be upset after the fact. So I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. He was upset. He wished he could have been there. I get where he's coming from, but horrible timing in my eyes. And definitely didn't, I don't think make Penn State look very good after the whole debacle in Lincoln, with them being upset, Kale throwing chairs and stuff. Maybe things aren't so fun in PA, but I get it. People are competitive. But at the end of the day, what I think is interesting is people are like, let's see a rematch. Let's see a match again. Let's settle it on a match. Well, J'den Cox beat him best out of 3 already, like a month ago or 2 months ago, whatever the hell it was. So he already did it. He's gonna get that chance to do it again. He's gonna be sitting in the best of 3. So he's gonna get that opportunity again, and if he can't get it done again, J'den Cox will be waiting for him. I think David Taylor is a bigger star than J'den Cox as far as popularity for a sport. There's more probably David Taylor fans than there are J'den Cox. So the person in me that wants to have stars in our sport, and maybe J'den Cox hasn't been able to blossom because he's been in college, but the person inside of me wants David Taylor to win just because of how many fans he has. I mean, he's got David Taylor shoes, David Taylor gear. So I like the controversy personally. I think it was a bad timing. Wish I could have seen it at a different time. So on that note, Ross, anything else?
Good to go.
Perfect.
Good week.
All right. Well, let's hopefully have some action this week after the World Championship. See if we can get any. If with the schools being able to contact some of these juniors on September 1st, maybe we'll see a couple of these of your top 5 uncommitted pop. So keep your Twitter fingers happy by following us on Twitter at IWrestle, at Hager Tony, at Ross Backlash. As always, thanks for listening to Potentially Dangerous, episode 97. Stay tuned. 2 more episodes, and then we've got our episode 100. No clue what the heck we're going to do, but you bet we're going to have some pretty cool guests on our show. So thanks for listening. Until next time.